Vice Chair Ekstrom,
Here.
Member Hollins.
She just emailed she can't get in.
Okay.
I will email her a link.
Thank you.
Secretary Johnson, I'm a yes. Chair Proietti,
Here.
Member Wall,
Here.
Mayor Wiedegardner.
Here.
There are 5 of us so far. We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. I did neglect to ask if anyone is recording this meeting. GCTV is recording the meeting tonight. Are there any people on the line who are also recording? Okay, hearing none, we will move into approval of the minutes. I believe we have one set of minutes to approve, that being from the meeting on Monday, September 14th. I take a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from September 14th, 2020.
Second. It was Member Johnson Musad with a second from Member Ekstrom. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's move to a roll call vote.
Member Karen, not here. Okay, Vice Chair Ekstrom.
Present, sorry.
This is on the
voting on the minutes.
Voting.
Oh yes, I'm screwing around with my computer. Sorry. Yes, I'm good with them.
Okay. Let's see. Member Hollins. Secretary Johnson, I'm a yes. Chair Proietti.
Yes.
Member Wall.
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegardner.
Yes.
Okay. And Chair Proietti, you asked me to remind you about adopting the agenda with some revisions.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Let's actually do that after public comment and reports. We'll do that after the, oh, no, we should do it now, just before we get any further. You're right. I would like, we are planning this evening, so the public is aware as well, to actually devote about 90 minutes to the agenda items under new business and the reports and public comment, and then move into executive session at 7:30. And anything that remains uncovered from the new business at 7:30, we will attempt to move to the agenda for our regularly scheduled meeting on October 14th. And in light of that and how our agenda is currently structured, I would like a motion to move new business items F and G to be covered first, and then bump all the rest of the agenda items down, if anyone would be so kind as to make that motion.
I move to adopt the agenda with the change from the current agenda to have items F and G occur first in the order of business.
You know what? Hang on. I am sorry. Let's try that again. It's actually items E and G and not F. I'm sorry. Move items E and G to the top.
Okay.
And item F we'll get to. Item F is important. We're going to get to that. I think we'll get to all of it. But just to be sure, we really do need to cover E and G. If you would be so kind as to try that motion again.
Sure. I move to adopt the agenda as written with the exception of items E and G occurring first in the order of business.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
And can we, any discussion? Wonderful. Let's just go ahead and vote on that and make sure we can do it.
Member Karen? Vice Chair Ekstrom? Vice Chair Ekstrom, are you on mute?
Yep.
Okay, that's a yes. Member Hollins?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson, I'm a yes. Chair Proietti?
Yes. Member
Wall?
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegardner?
Yes.
The motion carries with 6 votes.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. It's just in the interest of being streamlined in what we're tackling tonight. And now we will move into public comment. So the way we have structured public comment in the past. We will do the same tonight. We ask that folks not use the chat function in the meeting other than to indicate they are on the line with us in the WebEx platform and are interested in making a public comment. We will take those in the order that they're received. If you're on the telephone and unable, or for any other reason unable to actually type in the chat, we will take a second round of public comments verbally after we finish the ones that come up in the chat. So do we have any for public comment? And I would ask if Member Johnson-Musad and Member Ekstrom, if you would monitor the chat for us for any public comment.
Not seeing any.
Okay. Is there anyone on the line that would like to make a public comment this evening? You can go ahead and express that verbally now.
Certainly
Hi,
see
this is Sophia Pastori. I'd like to make a public comment.
I heard Sophia. I didn't catch your last name, but please go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes. You'll be timed, and let us know what town you live in as well as how to spell your name.
So I am a Greenfield resident, and my name is Sophia, S-O-P-H-I-A, and my last name is Pastori, P-A-S-T-O-R-E.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I am a parent of a kindergartner at Federal Street Elementary School and a resident of Greenfield, as I said before, and also a social worker in town who works with children and families. And I wanted to first say I am incredibly impressed by the online school, and my son is doing way better than I ever would have expected a kindergartner to do. So I applaud everyone who had a role in that. My second piece is more so, not in my role as a parent as much. It's not my direct experience, but as a community member and a social worker for sure. I know that the SRO, the school resource officer, was taken out of the budget, and obviously no in-person school is happening this year. So I know that the budget is tight, but I understand that there was the funding earmarked for that position. And that the portion that was paid by the public school may still be available. And I would like to request that that funding be funneled towards racial equity and racial justice work in the high school where the SRO was. And that there are some programs in town like Stand Up and the STAR program through Community Action that have been going on for years and that are very well positioned to do community work with families that are accessing remote school and are still experiencing racism, even though there is no school happening in person, at least right now. And the second piece is that I would request, again, as a resident and a parent, that I'm sorry, there was some feedback. An ad hoc committee.
I would remind folks people need to be on mute who are listening in, please.
Okay, I'll try for that last
Go
part.
ahead, Sophia. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. The last piece was a request that an ad hoc committee be formed by the school committee to address issues of racial equity and racial justice in the schools, not just for now. Obviously, things are remote right now, but ongoing into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. We'll take another public comment. If there are any in the chat, we'll go back to those.
We do have a request from the chat from Jay Fitzsim.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead. Please tell us your full name and your town you live in, and you have 3 minutes.
Yep. So my name is Jill Fitzsimmons, and I live in Greenfield. I have a kindergartner who is not currently in the Greenfield public school system, but I very much would like to feel comfortable moving him there in the future. I am also, like the previous commenter, requesting that the school committee reallocate funding that used to be for the SRO and put it towards racial justice youth programs. I, 20 years ago, worked for Community Action, although it wasn't Community Action yet, in the youth programs. And That was before there was an SRO, I think. And there was so much energy in the groups that I worked with to make positive change and to be a part of that positive change actively. And I'm very disheartened that it hasn't been the change that, it's been 20 years. That change has not really manifested. So I'm very hopeful that this is a point where we can make a decision to allocate funding on a consistent basis going into the future to sort of provide more traction to the energy that I know exists in the community, and to give young people a platform to develop those skills and to make the changes that are really important for them and for kids in our district in the future. And I also agree with the previous commenter that we should establish an ad hoc committee to listen to and address issues of racism in our schools. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
And
Any
I think
others in the chat?
I think Jill may have forgotten to spell her her name for the recording secretary.
You know what? I'm just going to type it in the chat box because it's a bear just here. But thank you for reminding me.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Do we have anyone else?
We do. Wargaftic.
Oh, that must be Susan Wargaftic. Is that you? Are you on the line, Susan? You might have to take yourself off mute.
Oh, I did, and I thought I did. Okay.
We can hear you now. You have 3 minutes. Please spell your name and indicate what town you live in.
Sure. My name is Susan Wargaftic, W-O-R, G as in George, A, F as in Frank, T as in Thomas, I-K, and I live in Greenfield. I have spoken before this committee previously about the need for racial equity education in the schools, and I am supporting the previous two speakers. I don't think I need to go through it again, but we do, there is a real interest in seeing the subcommittee formed to not just deal with issues of curriculum, but also are we somewhat segregating all of our kids of color because we have set up the districts in a certain way? I don't know. And I think that's something that ought to be explored to make sure that that's not the case. I also believe that we ought to be looking very carefully at the ability of individuals within our community to be able to learn about people who are not like them. And that means having true racial equity education within the schools. The STAR program was mentioned, the Stand Up was mentioned. There may be others, but the idea is to have those programs be a part of the regular school day, even when we're in a pandemic and even when we're online. And I thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Susan.
I don't see any others in the chat at the moment. Do you want to inquire again for people on the telephones?
Thanks,
Hello.
Glenn. Yes. Someone else on the telephone who'd like to make a public comment. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You have 3 minutes. State your name and the town you live in.
Okay. My name is Louise Amyot, A-M-Y-O-T. I live in Greenfield.
Go ahead, Louise.
I'm calling because I am concerned about racial equity in the schools. I have grandchildren of color who live in Vermont, not in Greenfield, but their experience in the schools has been one of definite discrimination, from such little things as being the only boy on the soccer team who does not have a complete uniform to play, or as a graduating senior, being the only student whose awards are not listed to the public during the ceremony. All kinds of little things have happened over the years, and it even started with the oldest of the children when she was in preschool, her coming to me and asking me if I would love her more if she had white skin, because in preschool she had already learned that being a person of color was not a good thing. So I would really like to urge the school, I'm sure that this happens in every school, in every community. I would like Greenfield to be prepared to deal with this and working on ensuring that staff, faculty, and children learn to love and respect everyone in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Do we have anyone else on the line interested in public comment?
Yes, hi.
Go ahead. State your name and
Hi,
your town.
Sure. This is Rachel Gordon, Gordon, and I am a Greenfield resident. I don't have kids in the schools, but I am here to make the same requests as other commenters this evening. I think in particular, reallocating the funding from the SRO position to directly support programming for youth of color and anti-racism programming in the schools would be a really meaningful action to support youth of color in our schools, and a recognition of where that money belongs and the fact that it has done harm in the past to youth of color, and this would be a step toward repairing that harm. And I think also establishing a committee to listen to and address issues of racism in the schools would be really concrete action that would be an important step toward repairing the harm that's been done to people of color and youth of color in Greenfield. I would also echo the person that said, we all know there are massive challenges that the schools are facing right now in terms of funding and everything else, and I don't envy you all the work that you've been having to do, and I can't imagine how hard it's been these past 6 months for you all, but addressing racism is not something that can or should be put off, especially not in a pandemic whose impacts really illustrate the racism that we see at every level in our community and in our country. And schools have been a particular site of harm for people of color. We hear that over and over in our community and elsewhere. So I ask this committee to use your power and take this opportunity to begin to repair that harm. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rachel. Anyone else interested in speaking for public comment? Going once?
This is,
go ahead.
Please
go ahead.
Hi, this is Catherine Golub. I spoke last time, and I don't want to take up too much time right now, but specifically echoing what folks have said, echoing what I said last time, very grateful for all of your work. And we cannot continue to put this issue on the back burner. In June, the committee voted unanimously to create an ad hoc committee to address these issues, and no action has been taken. Schools up and running, racism cannot continue to be put on the back burner. So specifically requesting that this be put on the agenda next meeting so that members can make a motion on this issue, so that this can move forward. Specifically, the funding of the SRO being reallocated to racial justice programming, hopefully to a program such as Stand Up, and creating the ad hoc committee so that we can put this on the agenda, so that this issue doesn't continue to be put on the back burner. And I don't want to have to keep giving public comment, so please just put this on the agenda so that it can be attended to. Thank you.
Catherine, what town do you live in, please?
Sure, yeah, I live in Greenfield.
Thank you.
And I have a 12-year-old in the schools.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone
you.
else on the line for public comment? Please don't wait, just go ahead and speak up. Going once? Okay. Hearing no other public comment, we will move into committee reports. I will go ahead and go first. And my committee report is actually, my chairperson's report is going to be fairly quick tonight. So the first thing I want to address, and I'm not going to assume that people saw the town hall event that I did earlier this week with the mayor. But one of the things that came up in that discussion that has become a reality now that we are all in the COVID normal, if there is a COVID normal, is we really don't have the ability to interact one-on-one in person very often. We don't have the ability to interact in groups in person really at all. And we are kind of forced into this weird situation where social media threads and discussion has become really central to what people are looking, when people are looking for support from others. And obviously with the remote learning environment, that has become a very integral part for many families, parents, caregivers seeking support in remote learning. And one thing I want to address very clearly is I've heard a lot on social media in the past few weeks since we started on September 17th, that was the first day of school, that decision, because not sure, probably because we said we would reevaluate where we were with remote plus and remote and in-person and hybrid learning every 2 weeks. There appears to be an assumption out there that that meant 2 weeks after we started school, we would start some sort of in-person program. And I need folks to understand that that just isn't reality. We will reevaluate every 2 weeks, but we cannot guarantee to folks that something is going to be on a set timeline, particularly with this being only the second full week of school. Folks need to be patient, need to make sure that they're reaching out to the appropriate people in the schools if they have questions or concerns or need additional support for their students, so that we can get those things, put those things in action. But I just want to be very clear. We will work towards and have intended since March to work towards going back to in-person learning for as many students as we can safely do. But we in no way said 2 weeks after the school year began, that meant we were moving to some sort of remote plus plan. My second comment has to do with my appreciation for folks who are continuing the discussion around anti-racism in our schools. I think it's a critical discussion. And the first piece that I want to address is the assumption that nothing is happening in the schools related to anti-racism. And I will not put Superintendent Harper on the spot, but I will remind folks that we are always in our schools using curriculum and doing professional development and rolling out programs to students that address anti-racism, address all kinds of isms that are out there. And I know for certain that there were a number of initiatives that have happened with our staff over the summer months that have begun an anti-racism curriculum. The other piece I would say is the schools committee is 100% supportive of these things happening in our schools. But the line between what happens at the purview of the superintendent and what happens under the purview of the school committee are very different things. And for us to put a committee in place, we will do something, but for us to put a committee in place to address anti-racism is not nearly as effective as the schools prioritizing in their curriculum for students and in their training and professional development for their staff that anti-racism is critically important. And that is already happening. And related to that, I am very pleased that member Jean Wall has agreed to chair our committee that is redrawing the district map. And I need you to understand, as folks who are engaged in our schools, that redrawing the district map is directly related to addressing isms in our schools. The folks who talk to us about this regularly have an understanding of how our schools are currently structured and what we can do to improve upon that. And it is all related to breaking down barriers and having students have as much equality in our school district as we can. So I want to recognize that Member Wall is taking on a big project, and she's been incredibly dedicated to this already, even though it's just getting started. And it's just one of a number of things that we're doing to address things that institutionally and infrastructurally have been racist all along. And we're going to do our best within our power to fix those things. And I think that's the end of my report. Thank you. I would take any questions from school committee members.
I have a question.
Please, Member Johnson-Musad.
I guess I think I wanted to speak to the racism question and just kind of ask you to elucidate some things. So what we voted on unanimously in June was about forming an ad hoc committee to work on a anti-racism statement as a committee. So where do you, and the follow-up from that was that there was going to be a 2-member group put together by you. So where do we stand on that, and what do you expect will happen next?
I think I'll take Catherine Golub's suggestion and put it on the next agenda. How about that?
Sounds great.
There we go. And this is hard, and I will freely admit I'm not very graceful about a lot of this right now. There is so much to manage with the schools, but that doesn't mean that I don't think that this is not important. It's critically important, and so are everything else. Everything else that we're dealing right now is critically important. And should we be moving on this? Absolutely. Let's put it on the next agenda.
Great. As well
Thank you
as
for the comment.
And you mean do you mean both of the items that she requests to be on the agenda? The issue about the school resource officer funding as well?
I don't know. I'll be honest about that one. Like, I don't know. We can talk about it as a committee. We probably should put it on the agenda. Is it my favorite idea personally for that money? No. But does it mean we should not talk about it as a committee? Also, no. We should absolutely talk about it. So I will make a commitment to have both of those things on the agenda for the October 14th meeting. How's that?
Thank you, and thank you for your willingness to take questions during your report.
Of course. Any other questions for the chair?
I actually just want to follow up on what you said about schools reopening.
Yeah.
So to be clear, what we had said is that with the earliest possible date would be October 1st. We didn't say with the earliest possible date. The reality being, I mean, we may have even pushed it far back as October 8th. The reality being, even if we were sitting here right now and said we wanted to open schools, there would still be at least a week to 2 weeks before that would actually happen because of all of the various pieces that need to be put into place to ensure that people can get to school, that the needs are being met while they're there. It isn't, I want to be clear with everyone, it isn't just okay, we're open and everybody rolls back in. There are a lot of moving pieces that have to be paid attention to. And I think that a lot of people don't really think about that. It isn't, like with everything else, if you decide to buy a house, there's a process that you have to go through. If you decide to, I don't know, anything, you have to go through a process to get there. And we want to do this well, and we want to be thoughtful about it. So it isn't, okay, well, the school committee said we can go back to school, then we start on Monday. It's the school committee has said, okay, we're moving into the next phase. And if it involves going back to school, it's going to take more than just we're doing it tomorrow. It's going to take a week to 2 weeks. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, guys. It hurts me to say that as well, but that's the reality of it. We need to be thoughtful and careful about how we do this. That's all. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
The mayor is raising her hand. I don't know if a reminder to school committee members that we can't necessarily see you, so you need to speak up.
Mayor Rita Gardner, go ahead.
Okay, I am on video, but maybe you can't see me. Anyway, that's all right. I'm fine. Thank you. I just wanted to state my agreement with the public that spoke. I think it's very important that we at least talk about the reappropriation of the SRO money towards other programs involving racial justice. And I think it's very important that we form that ad hoc subcommittee. So just putting my voice to that as a school committee member and as a mayor for that matter. And also, I want to just simply say that when we do decide to make a decision to go back to in-person learning in one fashion or another, either hybrid or all in, whichever it may be, or both as time moves on, that we make those evaluations in the same way that the city does when we think about how we reopen things. And that's evidence-based, based on the evidence of our numbers over time, not just what happened this week, but use perhaps a 3 reporting period, look at the numbers, where the trends are going, and what the infection rate is, because there are some very definite criteria that
Looks like we lost the mayor.
Froze
Chair
up.
Prayati, we
Go
lost
ahead.
you for a second, Mayor. I just wanted to confirm where we are. Chair Prayati, you made your report as committee chair, and you're taking questions now. That's where we are on the agenda. Okay.
I have a question.
That's all. I wasn't quite finished, but I'm fine with that's all. That's really all I had to say, rather, at the moment.
Comment?
Go ahead.
In support of the agenda item next month, talking about the reallocation of funding, could we include in that the cost center that we used to have at the high school for elective programs? It was just the way we organized our budget, but we have $250,000 for the high school principal to use for elective programs as the interest and needs change.
You know what, Member Hollins, I'm going to stop you right there because you can bring it up as a part of the agenda item. We don't need to bring it up right now.
Yes, I just don't want it to not be able to be discussed, that and library books.
It's part of the discussion. It's part of the discussion for the topic. So we'll bring it up at the next meeting. Thank you. Any other last questions for me? I had no idea my report would be so controversial.
This is Member Karen.
Good. Member Karen, go ahead.
Extremely brief. I think that as school committee members, when we wear this hat, we are thinking very logistically large money numbers, and sometimes to our public and our parents and our community members, they think we're not hearing them talk about how overwhelmed and hard and difficult this is. And I just want to say we hear you, and we are trying to get this going the best we can while keeping everybody safe. A lot of us have 4 at home here. It's not easy, and I know that this is hard, and I know that it's complicated, and I know it's just out of the bounds of what any of us thought we would be doing in our lives. Yes, we are thinking about the numbers. Yes, we are thinking about keeping everyone safe. Yes, we're trying to figure out how to make it work financially. Yes, yes, yes. But also we are here, and we are listening, and we are trying.
Very well said, Member Karen. Thank you. I'm going to move on to what is the next agenda item, which I believe is the superintendent's report. Yes, Superintendent Harper, please go ahead.
So thank you, Chair, and I want to welcome everybody that is listening in. I think one of the best things that can happen in a democracy and a community is participation in public processes, and particularly involvement and participation in a discussion about what's best for our children. So for anybody that bothers to tune in, to share feedback, or to participate, we know that your time is valuable, and the fact that you're spending it here with us says an awful lot about what is wonderful about this community and how much you care about the future of our young people. So I really want to thank people for spending your time in this way, including committee members and the public. As we near the end of our second week, I do want to just note that we launched a survey for both families and staff, and we have had a tremendous response with over 660 parent or family member responses, and well over 100 teacher responses, teachers and staff. Those are still open through tomorrow. And so I really want to thank everybody. It's tremendously helpful. I also really just wanted to say this is such an extraordinary time. Everybody is doing something very new and sometimes very challenging. And the amount of good sort of graciousness that people are showing, kindness and patience with themselves and others is remarkable. I really need to thank the community for the way that you're supporting each other and our students and being patient. There are technology glitches and issues at every corner, and people are working through them with such real impressive skill and patience. I really want to thank you. I will say that just as one highlight of our survey results so far, looking at this tiny little slice, folks that participated in meetings with our teachers before school started, the vast majority of respondents said it was the highest possible rating in terms of very helpful. And I think that speaks to even a little bit of in-person or human connection goes a long way at this time. And I really want to tell the community, we hear you. We are working hard to get our kids back as soon as it is safe to do so. I fully support that. And we are in negotiations sometimes every single day. And we're really pleased that the results of our HVAC assessments in our buildings are starting to come back. That is a huge indicator of progress towards getting our buildings ready for students to return. Moving into the report, and these comments and materials are all on the website. If you're watching from home and you'd like to look as well as listen, go to gpsk12.org. On the right-hand side, click on School Committee, and you'll find all the materials in the drop-down menu there, so you can follow along. I would like to thank Bay State Franklin. We have had a tremendous donation. Bay State Franklin donated over $775 of gift cards for the schools to use. The principals are distributing these at each building. Some are using them for attendance awards and participation. Others are using them for needed initiatives and projects that the teachers are working on in remote learning. And in addition, they donated, you can see a photo of it, just an overwhelming amount of actual school supplies. We knew in the spring that some students struggled in remote learning because they didn't have access to physical supplies. And we can't thank Bay State enough for stepping up and making sure our students are successful this fall. I'd like to give you an update on the tents that folks have seen about town. The tents themselves are a wonderful space. They are being used. They were used for in-person meetings before school started at many of our buildings. And in addition, they're an important part of our Remote Plus plan so that they have important uses as we phase back in. But with the help of GSET, the city, DPW, our custodians, the rec department, central maintenance, these tents now have picnic tables and Wi-Fi as outdoor access points and power to almost all of the tents. I got an update today that the Academy of Early Learning's tent was in progress, and that means every single tent is at least in progress. Some of our schools have more than one. And this is taking advantage of outdoor spaces where we know that safety can be enhanced and trying to bring a little bit of the remote learning and the outdoor environment together. So I want to thank our Director of Technology, our tech department, and the city.
It does look like the superintendent's frozen. We'll see if she comes back quickly. I don't know about everyone else, but remote learning was kind of a frozen back and forth all day today in this house. Looks like she's still not back with us. Let's see if we can actually, while we're waiting for her to come back, are there any subcommittees that need to give a report this evening? Budget subcommittee, is that Susan Ekstrom? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so we had a budget subcommittee meeting, and in that meeting we discussed a number of things, not least of which was enrollment in the schools, and if our staffing levels are appropriate for the enrollment in the schools, which is going to be discussed again later this evening on our agenda. We talked about some issues that we're having with our various vans, and tried to get a sense of how we came into a position to currently be one less van. I said it out loud, sorry.
That's okay.
And goodness, what else did we discuss? We talked about taking a look at we want to get a look at the 2020 budget, and now that it's been closed, where we ended up, and then looking at the same thing with 2021. The materials were unfortunately unable to be available for us, so we spent some more time digging around with enrollment. And part of the question with that, I will wait and we'll talk about it when items referred from the budget subcommittee. But we did meet, and we are planning to meet again, some of which will come out of discussions we have tonight. I suspect that it will be in the next couple of weeks. Anyone who's really excited, stay tuned.
Thank you. Any other subcommittees have a report?
Do you want planning and construction?
Did you have a meeting?
Are they? They're not. So well.
Yeah.
Okay,
They're not a subcommittee.
they're not. Let's put it as an agenda item for the 10-14 meeting. Can we do that? I'd feel a little more comfortable.
It's always been reported with subcommittees and assignments, but whatever.
So yes, let's do it 10-14. And Jean, maybe you can come bring everyone up to date in the library as well. I know you're not the person who's been identified as directly, but I haven't been able to attend since all of this crazy has started.
Well, and I don't mean to be cutting people off, but we have a short time. This is a specially scheduled meeting. We're meeting every 2 weeks. We have a short amount of time tonight. And I want to be clear, there are at least 2 folks who are a part of the school committee that do not have childcare this evening. And that is going to be a problem with all of this. And we're trying to work as best as we can with the time that we have. So planning and construction, we can put it as an agenda item and have as much time as we need to discuss it at the meeting on 10-14. Any other?
The mayor is back, and I believe that she would like to continue.
Oh, please go ahead.
Well, I think we were looking for Jordana to continue. I just was going to say that I welcome in this meeting a comment from Planning and Construction. Planning and Construction is an advisory committee to advise the mayor. So I often don't get to attend their meetings, so I will look forward to whatever they have to say in the future about it, like at the future meeting, the next one, about comments about what it relates to the schools.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, I was only going to talk about comments relating to the schools.
And like I said, so in my time on the school committee, we've never had planning and construction report out in subcommittees. So what has been done in the past, I'm not familiar with, and we're going to move on. I don't see that the superintendent is back with us. Superintendent Harper, are you on the line? No. Okay, so what we can
I'll just say if it has been the precedence for the school committee to have that report, and if time is tight, and we would like to request that to happen during next week's committee and appointments reports, I think that might be a better approach than creating a separate agenda item, because I think we want to keep with the precedence of people being able to report from their committees during this time.
Fair enough. And I mean, yeah, I don't want to make a big deal about it. I just want to move through the stuff that we have, and we've had a little bit more discussion than I expected already tonight, and I want to be conscious of our time. Since I don't see the superintendent back on the line, just okay, so we will actually move into the new business, and as we voted earlier, we are going to take item E and item G first. District leadership staffing discussion. I would like to just talk a little bit about the fact, and I do wish the superintendent was on the line to hear this. Thankfully, there are notes and a recording. So we have the full knowledge of the superintendent's intent to not seek a extension on her contract, which ends on June 30th, 2021. She informed us of that in September. And at this point, it is the plan of the school committee to actually look to have a search firm, which is fairly common, have a search firm be hired to help us with the process of searching for a superintendent. Just give me 1 second here to get to the right page. Okay, so what I think we should start with at this point, knowing that we intend to go this route or would like to try to go this route, is to have a motion. I'd like to have a motion from a school committee member to move to begin the process of hiring a search firm to manage the superintendent succession process.
So moved.
From member Ekstrom in a second.
Second.
It was Member Wall. Let's have some discussion.
The mayor would like to speak.
Go for it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
I do have some experience with this. We have, as a school committee, always had a third party conduct the search. That does not mean that on that, that there isn't a committee set up under the direction of whoever the third party is that will have various types of relative members. I don't mean that they are relatives. I mean that they have a role on the committee. So I don't want people in the community to think that they're going to be left out. There are certainly often people from the public named to serve on the committee, not large numbers, because the committee can get pretty large when you're talking about who has a say in this. So just wanted to give you a little background and history on that. But the fact that there's a third party doing it is actually a preferable way, and it might be important to at some point mention when we know who that third party is going to be.
Just a note that Chair Proietti had to step away for childcare reasons, so Vice Chair Ekstrom is now the chair.
Thank you, Glenn. I actually do have some comments I want to make about this, but it can wait. If there are other committee members who would like to speak, please do so. Seeing lots of no's, heads being shaken no. I do want to comment on this, and part of the reason that, or what my hope is with us using an organization to help us out with this, is that they would sort of tease out from us things that we didn't realize that we were interested in or not interested in someone when we're looking for a new person. But also, I think we have a really interesting opportunity, given that people are moving from big cities, to capture some different interest. I'm sort of looking forward to see who it is that would apply, because I really think that we're going to have a really great opportunity to pull someone maybe who's had experience in a larger district or has had other opportunities. And I think this is really going to be something that will make our thinking a little bit different. Still no one wants to say anything?
I can say I'm not speaking because it seems pretty obvious. I mean, I don't think any of us are equipped to run a search for this position at this level. So we need professionals. We need to get the best talent we possibly can. And so I
worry that we just recycle people who are already in Western Mass. And so this is an opportunity to not do that. I mean, just by virtue of where we are and things like that, I'm interested to see what will happen, as I hope everyone else is.
Not necessarily there.
I know, but one can hope.
Candidates don't all come from Western Mass. I see that Superintendent Harper is on.
She is. Mm-hmm. So can we get shall we do a roll call to see where we are with this?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Member
Can you
Karen?
read the motion again? Can Susan read the motion again, just for people? We got a little off there on our discussion.
Oops. Yeah. Yes, the motion is that the school committee begin the process of hiring a search firm to manage the superintendent succession process.
Okay. Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Member Hollins?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson? I'm a yes. Chair Proietti? Not back yet. Member Wall?
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegardner?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Wonderful. Thank you. Superintendent, you have returned. Would you like to continue with your committee report? Or, I'm sorry, your superintendent report? Excuse me.
Sure, I apologize. My internet cut out. It happens sometimes, as I think I was saying right
For the
before
best
it
of
cut
us.
out. The important thing is continuing on. I did want to, I think I had just spoken about the tents and given thanks to that collaboration. I did want to note, I think some recognition has deservedly gone to our food service team, and we have reached that milestone of 200,000 meals served. And, when we think about needs in our community, certainly at the base of all of them is food security. And so I want to thank the community partners that have been addressing this and the role of food services. And to note that on September 15th, Senators Comerford, Goby, and Lesser highlighted Greenfield Public Schools in particular with the Massachusetts Food Caucus. And we had an opportunity to highlight the work of Eliza Calkins and our food service team. And so there's some information provided on that in your report. Also in the packet are all of the newsletters. We're really getting a lot of communication from the schools to parents and caregivers, and really focusing on trying to be clear, informative, and timely, with a lot of respondents on the surveys feeling clearly that they're getting enough communication from the school about what their students need. So I did want to highlight that we're starting things like clubs and band at the middle school, a social justice club at the middle school, some opportunities for students to engage not just in the academics, because we do have a more robust academic experience, but also those ways that we know students need to connect socially with each other, and extracurriculars. And finally, we have a youth soccer clinic. The dates are throughout October and into November. These are following social distancing and health guidelines. And we hope that folks that are interested in grades 4 through 7 will reach out and sign up. Andy Rupp is offering that. And we wanted to highlight some of the innovative ways that we're trying to get students physically moving, connecting, engaged in athletics. And thanks to our athletic director and folks that are making that possible. And I don't have anything further in my report that I don't think will be addressed in other agenda items throughout the evening.
Member Ekstrom, did you want to ask people if they have questions for the superintendent? You're on mute.
I said, thank you, Superintendent. And Glenn kindly reminded me to say, does anyone have questions for the superintendent? And I talked away, being on mute. So, does anyone have questions for our superintendent?
I do.
Go ahead.
Well, Superintendent Harper, because of some technology issues at the last meeting, when it was announced that you were not seeking to come back after June, we didn't have a chance to just appreciate you for all your hard work and everything that you've done for the Greenfield Public Schools. And I think I noticed, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you included the very nice editorials that were written about you in the Greenfield Recorder in your packet. So I would really like to see those included in our next packet, even though I know it's probably embarrassing to put in the kudos from the community, but people see you and the role that you play and appreciate you. And I know we all appreciate the hard work you've done and the effort you've made on behalf of student success. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Member Dixon. I really appreciate that.
I forgot to kind of find a way to frame it as a question, but I guess it would have been obvious. It was just a statement anyway.
I heard, will you include the editorials?
Yes,
I'll try to find them.
Thank you. I'll help.
This is for Karen. I would like to ask a question.
Go ahead.
First, I'll just, join in on Glenn's statement of, I would have loved to see those in here. I tried to read as many as I could in the paper, and I got to dig up the picture of the first time I met the superintendent in person at the radio station and listen to Jackson talk about the buddy bench. So I'm really hopeful that we will have a wonderful candidate to replace you, but I am also wishing you the very best in the future. My actual question is, You mentioned that some of our HVAC reports are coming in, and that's really the next step in us moving forward. Do you have any, I mean, I'm going with wide range estimates here on when the full reports will be in, not when changes can be made, because that's a whole other question. Do you have any thoughts about that, or estimates, or not a thing we can talk, put a lid on yet? I don't know.
So I can begin to address that. We have a commissioning agent who is licensed to perform this type of work. And those initial results have begun to come in. And what we've done is we've prioritized the rooms that are in the next phase. So rather than doing sort of soup to nuts, every room in every building, whether or not we'll use them in the next phase, we've been very selective about saying, give us the next rooms that we need to use, so that as soon as that information is ready, we can begin using the areas that are slated next for use in order to speed up how we go about this. So we have that those initial results back. They're very technical. They're not necessarily narrative. They're designed in terms of the engineering specifications of airflow, exchanges, and so forth. I know that the DPW and central maintenance have already begun working on making fine-tuning and adjustments from that. I personally received some of this information today, as I said earlier, and then we're looking to sit down and discuss what does it mean for next steps, I think into early next week. Certainly this is a huge area of focus for me, so I'm interested in bringing this information when it is adjusted and completed to the full committee as soon as possible.
You.
Any further questions for the superintendent? I'm hearing crickets. I'm not seeing any hands raising, so I suspect that we're okay to move on. Thank you, Superintendent. I appreciate it. Glenn, the next thing that we were going to discuss was the public vote on an executive session item from 9/12. Is that still our plan? You're muted if you're here.
I am here. To be honest, is it item E on our agenda? Because I think that's our next item is item E.
We already discussed that.
Oh, okay. Then item G, is it item G?
I believe so.
Okay.
Okay,
This is Susan Farber jumping in. The minutes showed that G is the next voted item.
Excellent. Thank you, Susan. I appreciate it. So the school committee held an executive session on 9/12. We're going to have to say mea culpa on a little bit of it. The link that was posted for the public, this was an emergency executive session or emergency meeting that went directly into an executive session. The link to for the public to attend the meeting where we said we're going into executive session was inaccurate. We sort of were moving so quickly, it didn't happen as it normally would, or the process didn't take place as it normally would. And so I'm going to sort of do a mea culpa on that one. It was never anyone's intention to not be upfront and direct in that we were going to be holding a meeting. So please, just given our times and things like that, if you would forgive us. And
Ekstrom, I just want to let you know that Chair Proietti is.
I saw that immediately, and I was about to say, and I'm throwing this back to the chair.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for taking over. I think he's asleep. We'll see. So did you already take the vote, or is this just the intro?
Just the intro.
Okay. And the other thing I would add is that we immediately reported ourselves for open meeting law violation the Monday after the meeting. And what we were told to do is bring the executive session vote to the public session, which we are doing tonight. And I would actually ask that Recording Secretary Susan Farber can read for us the motion that we passed that evening so that we can vote again in public.
Yes. There are two motions, and the first one reads that the school committee appoint one or more attendance officers for a period not to exceed October 10th, with the purpose to assist the superintendent with registration and attendance as school opens.
Thank you. And I would take a motion
So
to approve.
moved.
Yep, and a second.
Second.
That was Member Hollins and Member Ekstrom. And we'll just go, we've already discussed, we can just go right to a vote. Member Johnson-Musad?
Well, I think that it may be useful to give the public some sense of, for people to actually.
You want to have discussion?
Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, discussion?
I wasn't at the meeting. I guess I was wondering if people who voted for it would speak for why they voted for it. And
Sure.
I can tell you what I recollect.
Sure, go ahead, Member Hollins, please.
What I recollect was there was a pressing issue having to do with parents saying school opened in a few days and they couldn't register their children. And the issue was attendance assistance and registrar assistance. And after a discussion about what was probably needed to support the superintendent, this motion was made. There were some more specific, detailed motions proposed before that, maybe not finalized, but the idea was to leave it flexible for the superintendent. So in whatever way we could support getting the help needed to make sure all the children were registered as promptly as possible. I think there were only 3 days till school opened. And that's why it said up to and with an amount, and it was left open for the superintendent to do what the superintendent thought was most useful.
Thank you, Member Hollins. Further discussion or clarification, what have you, comments?
was there, the meeting was scheduled on a Friday. It took place on a Saturday. Were there actions that took place on Monday and Tuesday that could not have happened if the meeting was not scheduled on an emergency basis? In other words, if a meeting had been posted for Wednesday, it would have been within the ordinary order of business, or public meeting law kind of requirements. So, what happened on Monday and Tuesday that could only happen because this meeting happened?
Can I respond to
that?
Go, please. I'm not sure who said that.
That was Susan Hollins.
Yeah, I'd like
Go
to
ahead, Member
respond to
Hollins.
that. I didn't have any idea what the meeting was about till I got there. But according to the Attorney General guidance, an emergency meeting is okay if there's something sudden and unexpected that comes up that must be dealt with then. School started on Thursday, I believe.
Correct.
And parents were contacting other people, not I, but other people, that they couldn't register their children. The phones weren't being answered. There were only 3 days to school. So I think everybody present had a sense that it was an appropriate emergency situation to get some action to support children registering for school. I don't know what happened on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, but I don't think meeting on Wednesday about what to do about families that hadn't registered for Thursday would have been adequate myself.
Further discussion. Thank you, Member Hollins. Further discussion. Anyone? Okay.
I'd like to comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who is that? Is that Superintendent Harper?
I just wanted to note, I don't care to say much here. I believe Member Hollins said everybody present, and I would just ask individual members to speak for themselves and perhaps let the record show that that's an individual comment from Member Hollins and not representative of everyone present.
I'm sorry, I meant school committee members who were voting. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Other comments?
Yes, please.
Is that Member Ekstrom?
Yep.
Go ahead.
So the intention of the meeting originally had been to discuss a registrar and where we had been with hiring of that person. And it wasn't, I had to go deal with my dog. So if I'm repeating things that people have said, let me know. And the intention was, where are we with the status of that hire? As we had the discussion, we came to the realization that there were a number of students that had registered on paper, but had not been registered within the computer system. And so therefore, part of our discussion, because school was starting on Thursday, was that we need to make some sort of plan to make sure that these things happen as soon as they possibly can. And so we discussed, is it that we hire temps to get the people into the system? Do we have some administrators to do this work? And unfortunately may have morphed into something that was an open meeting law violation. However, we did check with the various organizations in the state, as well as our attorney, who said no, indeed, that it was within the purview to have that discussion. So that is my recollection, and I'm sure that we could find the minutes and prove me correct or incorrect, and I'm okay with that as well. The intention had been wholly to make sure and ensure that these students were registered electronically so that they would receive, as the discussion went on, so that they would receive updates from the schools, or if they needed to receive a Chromebook, that there was some electronic record that these students were enrolled and indeed did need those materials. I'm good.
Thank you, Member Ekstrom. Other comments, discussion from school committee members?
This is Member Karen.
Go ahead, Katie, please.
I think my understanding of the meeting and the reason it had to be emergency was for the reason that Susan spoke, that it come to the attention in the very brief time before the meeting that many people on the committee had been contacted. It certainly was not an intention of saying someone wasn't doing their job. It certainly wasn't the intention to hide things from the public. It was, parents had reached out to me, I had helped them through the process, and then it turned out that had been happening to multiple people. And so we realized we needed to meet quickly to give all of the support we possibly could before school started. That's why it was an emergency, not because we need to discuss hiring a registrar. That is an important piece of that, but that isn't an emergent thing where there wasn't going to be a thing. We couldn't hire a registrar by Monday. So we needed to give emergency support. And I think that that's an important part of this conversation, just so that we are clear of why we called it as an emergency meeting. And I mean, I didn't call it because I'm not the chair, but anyway, yeah. So I just think that for me, the reason we called it was to make sure we could give support to the superintendent in a fast manner that could not have waited till Wednesday. I guess that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Member Karen. Any further discussion? Okay, so let's go ahead and retake that vote. Member Johnson-Musad, would you do a roll call for us, please?
Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Member Hollins?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson, I'm going to abstain. Chair Prietti?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegardner? If you're speaking, I cannot hear you. And maybe we've lost you altogether.
She is on mute and her camera is off as far as I can see.
Okay,
She may have
so
stepped away.
I guess Mayor Wiedegardner's absent as well.
Okay. So the motion doesn't
carries
carry.
with 5 votes. Yep.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you all for making sure we got that through before we move into executive session at 7:30. I appreciate everyone talking about that. So
And
we
now
did.
this. Oh, you're going to do the second motion?
Did you? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Glenn. Susan Farber, would you read the second motion for us, please?
Yes. To set the compensation for temporary attendance officer appointments at an amount not to exceed $10,000 at the superintendent's discretion.
Thank you. So does someone want to move that now in public session?
Can we motion to affirm the vote? We want the exact wording. I'll do either one.
You can say so moved. That's fine. Motion to affirm is fine.
Motion
Yep.
to affirm.
Okay, that was Member Hollins, and a second.
Second.
I don't know who that was. Member Extra, maybe? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Any discussion?
Do you want me to try and explain what I recall? What I
If you feel
recall,
it's necessary.
I think it's useful to the public to have a sense not just of the votes, but the conversation itself.
the conversation was that this was temporary. We were trying to get school opened, and what was an amount of money? Would be non-union personnel, and we put an amount but didn't divide it up. And I think some of the discussion was that there were different. It was the superintendent's discretion, but there were different rates already established in the district for different types of substitutes and tutors and part-time personnel that were non-union. And so there were references, and that we didn't know who the people would be or what their background was. And we just put an amount of money. I think it was through October 16th or something. So it was a short time. The idea was to leave it to the superintendent's discretion.
Could I comment? Could I comment, please?
Unmute. Yes, go ahead. Please comment.
So I just want to note that there was some interest in ensuring that we had all students registered and in seats by October 1st, which was, as I understood it, the purpose of the emergency financial reason. Today is October 1st. I'm happy to report that the Friday before the meeting, we had offered a candidate for registrar the position. They didn't accept it based on the salary. We have another candidate who's quite experienced, who we've offered the position to, and we were continuing to interview and offer the position regardless of the committee's action in this regard. We were moving through that because it is, in fact, an administrative, not a school committee function to hire the registrar. So that was ongoing, independent of this. However, the urgency around registering for October 1st was addressed that same day. We learned that the candidate it was offered to on the Friday declined. The former registrar, who had retired, in fact, returned to work with the district and has capably and ably been serving the district since that time. We're really glad and grateful for her assistance while we have continued our interviewing. And all students are registered. All students are in seats. We have, I believe it's 77 students that have choiced into Greenfield. And that's impressive in light of the committee's decision to start in the remote only mode. That says a lot about the quality of our remote learning program. And I'm very pleased that all of the students have been able to be assisted, and that at the schools there is outreach efforts going on to ensure that students are attending, including our work to develop an attendance policy, which we're currently negotiating about what counts as attendance, following the Department of Education guidelines. And working with this remote environment, you have to create all new codes in PowerSchool and define what it looks like to attend, which is very different when you're not physically attending. So I do want to say that I appreciate the vote. However, the timing of it being on October 1st as opposed to prior in public does pose some timing intricacies as well.
Thank you, Superintendent Harper. Any further questions, comments, discussion? Okay, so let's go ahead and do a roll call vote on this.
Member Karen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom,
Yes.
Member Hollins,
Yes.
Secretary Johnson, I'm going to abstain. Chair Proietti,
Yes.
Member Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegardner.
Yes.
The motion carries with 6 votes. Chair Proietti, I have another motion on this item.
Please.
I move that the school committee, through the chair, seek a written determination from council about any open meeting law violations related to the September 12th, 2020 meeting and recommendation to address them and include all member and superintendent communications about the meeting in their review.
Seconded?
Who was that?
Member Karen?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
This is Susan Farber. That went too fast. I didn't get it.
Can you
Sure.
repeat it, Member Johnson Musad? Thank you.
I
A little more
can,
slowly.
certainly. I move that the school committee, through the chair, seek a written determination from council about any open meeting law violations related to the September 12th, 2020 meeting and recommendations to redress them and include all member and superintendent communications about the meeting in their review.
And we
How
have a
is that?
second.
How is
Do you have
that?
what you need, Susan Farber?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Member
Katie
Karen?
seconded.
Yeah. I could just speak to why I wanted to make this motion, which is just that I just think for the good of the order, I know that council has been consulted and some of the items on tonight's agenda are related to their recommendations. However, just for complete transparency, I think it's important that the attorney who's reviewing it have access to all the communications about it and not just the kind of report on what happened from the chair or other officers of the school committee, and that we get a written determination so that the public can see the council's recommendations and determination.
Comment?
Please, Member Hollins, go ahead.
Well, the following Monday, I contacted the Attorney General's office and had a discussion about the whole meeting, the reason it was called. I didn't know about the meeting before it was called. And I sent a report that same day to the chair. And I don't think and I understood that the chair also had guidance from an attorney. And in my report, I talked about what the cure was, if there had been. But I don't think anyway, there are a lot of things we do, I think, need to be checked on. Like there was a comment tonight that if you take a motion in non-public session, it doesn't carry unless you make it again at a later session. There's a lot of technical issues, but I think we checked on it right away and had feedback from both the Attorney General's office. So I don't see the need to do a big investigation. We've explained the circumstance, and the cure, if there was an infraction, is to bring up the discussion again and vote again in public session, and we've done that. And I think people had a situation. What I experienced is that there was an emergency situation. How to call it? It did involve some things that were confidential for union reasons and some things that weren't, and it was just confusing. We decided we would look it up afterwards. So I don't see the need to pursue it. Personally, looks like it was pursued and addressed.
Any further discussion?
The mayor is raising her hand.
Mayor Weingartner, you got to speak up. I can't see you on the screen.
I get it now. I get it. Thank you. Third time's the charm. I just want to remind everybody it was an executive session, so whatever it is that you want to release, we need to make sure that we're in agreement on how we release it, and that's probably what this vote is about. But I just want to make sure that we're in agreement that everything that Member Johnson Musad is asking for is releasable.
And I'm just going to follow up on that and say, yes, what the mayor is saying is true, because anything that would be affected by that meeting has already taken place. and therefore the minutes could be released, and which is something that we're actually working on.
This is Member Karen. I have a question or a comment.
Go ahead, Member Karen, please.
I sort of I view this motion as just a clear outline. It's not that I don't have trust in the conversations that were had with the lawyers. I was not privy to them, and I'm certain they were in on a phone call, so there's not really a way to like have a transcript of them. It would just make me feel more comfortable to have a written conversation with a lawyer that can be very transparent to the public, but also to me, because I am culpable for breaking open meeting law. And I would like to know exactly with a written statement how to be sure I stood up and did what needed to be done. And I think that the record should hold that, so that we are always proving publicly with written form, something someone can look at, read, whatever, not just say, oh yeah, no, I talked to the lawyer and this is what he said to do. And I'm not saying that was purposefully done or intentional to, it was just needs to be done quickly so we can make the next step. And I respect that. But I think that by going this level, we're getting a very clear written plan of what we need to do. And it may be, hey, you already did it. Good job. But I just think that would be a really great way to continually have transparency with the public.
Thank you, Member Karen. Any other discussion?
I'll just add to clarify that in addition to the notes from the meeting, I also included in this is to include all member and superintendent communications about the meeting, because I think that's going to be an important piece, and I just want to make sure people, when they're voting, understand that the request for the documentation, and that's to go not to the public but to the council. The public may request any of these items they wish to because of public record requests and whatnot. But my recommendation is that this information goes to council to have a full picture of the different perspectives and the different things that happened in the scheduling and discussion about the meeting before and after the meeting.
Thank you. Other questions, comments, discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to a vote.
Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Sure.
Member Hollins?
I'll abstain.
Secretary Johnson? I'm a yes. Chair Proietti?
Sure, yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegardner?
Yes.
The motion carries with 6 votes.
Thank you. Okay.
Chair, may I ask a question regarding the agenda?
Please.
I believe this may be out of Robert's rules, so please forgive me. I'm noting that we have about 6 minutes before we move into executive session. I just simply want to bring to the committee's attention that one of the items on the agenda tonight under the budget and finance recommendations is very time sensitive, and there's action required by October 5th. I don't know if that can occur tonight with the time we have. But I am just wanting to bring to the committee's attention that if that vote does not occur tonight, we either may need to have another meeting on short order. There's just a time-sensitive agenda item relative to the vans. And Chair, it's entirely up to you. I simply want to just note that given the short amount of time before we move into executive session.
So I appreciate that. And I saw the information in your superintendent's report. And should this have been listed as a separate item referred from the budget subcommittee? Is that what you're saying?
I believe the agenda item reads items referred from budget subcommittee.
Okay.
So
and I didn't specifically include the van one.
Information came forward this evening from our business office. I spoke to the business manager about it earlier this evening. We did just receive a final number upon which the committee may take a vote. Again, it doesn't have to happen tonight, but there is a deadline of October 5th, which is Monday.
Yeah, I think it would be wise for us to
tomorrow
cover
and
this.
Monday in terms of business days before
Right.
that can be resolved.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be something that is important for us to cover this evening. So you all can do the moves that you need to do.
Comment?
I'd like it if someone made a motion before we take any comments.
The motion would be to adopt in a revised agenda to put this item next. So
moved.
I guess I second.
Okay, discussion.
Comment?
Member Hollins, go ahead.
I don't sit at a computer all day because I'm not working, but a long amount of information on this was sent out at 2:55 today. It was attached to a very long superintendent report. So if you didn't read through the entire superintendent report, you wouldn't have seen it, but it was all the history on this issue, the discussion, emails back and forth, conversations with attorney. I think personally, unless people have read all of that, it's complicated. And we've only just had the information. I mean, I read it 10 minutes before the meeting started, but it was only sent out at 3:00 today.
Some of this is carried over from the budget committee. There was a fairly substantial amount of discussion we had surrounding the vans. And so I don't think there's any reason that we couldn't share everything. I know, Susan, that you have questions and we should absolutely answer those, which I think is part of this discussion.
Just to be clear, the motion on the table is a motion to adopt an amended agenda to discuss this next.
Right.
That needs a 2/3 vote to adopt an amended agenda. So should we go ahead and have that vote now?
Yes, what would be the alternative if the vote wasn't positive and we had a deadline, just so I know?
To amend if the vote wasn't positive, to amend the agenda?
Yeah, what would be the alternative to address this issue with the timeline?
I suspect we'd have to have an emergency meeting.
Okay. Just for this.
To be timely with this, the district and the superintendent and the business manager need some movement made on this. That's what I would think. I feel free to someone correct me.
Okay.
So I will pick this up and I will make a motion to purchase a Honda.
I'm sorry, Vice Chair Ekstrom. We haven't had a vote yet on the motion to adopt an amended agenda so that we can talk about this now.
Of course, apologies.
Chair Poyetti, are you ready for votes on that? If you are, I can't hear you.
Go ahead, sorry.
Okay. Member Karen.
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom.
Yes.
Member Hollins.
No.
Secretary Johnson, yes. Chair Poyetti.
Yes.
Member Wall.
Yes.
Mayor Rita Gardner.
Yes.
Motion carries with more than a 2/3 vote, so we can amend the agenda.
Okay, so we will open discussion regarding the vans.
Let's start with a motion.
Please.
I'd like to make a motion to purchase the recently repossessed van for the school district. This would be a purchase outright.
Do we have an amount?
Yes, I'm pulling it up. It's in the materials and I'll pull it up for you right now.
Yep.
It's $29,282.27.
Thank you, Andy.
Andy. Susan Farber, do you have what you need, including the amount? I'd like
Could
that
you
to be in
repeat
the
the
motion.
amount so I'm sure, please?
Sure. $29,282.27.
All set, thank you.
Okay, did I get a second yet on the motion?
No.
Do I have a second?
We can do this just for chatting if that's what it means.
Second.
That was Member Karen?
Yeah.
So a second from Member Karen, and let's move to discussion.
Okay.
Member Hollins, go ahead.
I have a
Go ahead.
couple questions. One is,
Please.
do we still need the van? What is the original purchase price of the van and how much have we paid toward it? I figure we've paid about $9,000 on a $32,000 van, but I'm not sure what the numbers are.
Mayor Wiedegartner here. I would echo Susan's questions being answered before we take a vote.
Do we
Absolutely. I think we also need a little bit of background. But Andy, can you provide that for us? What is the amount that has previously been paid? This is a long and involved story, and I may leave that up to you.
Yes, I'm searching for that. If you give me a second here, I can start the story if you'd like while I find that amount.
Sure, go ahead.
So, and it's really just going to be a recap of what the attachments were, but the issue apparently started with prior to when Mr. Nemberkow was still here. There was a payment that we submitted to this leasing company that was misapplied to a different account altogether. And then what ended up happening is then we received bills subsequent to that from, again, Mr. Nemberkow's time forward that ended up resulting in this missed payment still trying to be researched, adding to this confluence of events where the fact that Ally was assessing late fees for that missed payment as in addition to other invoices. And then, so we don't pay late fees. And so ultimately what ended up happening is that Mr. Nemberkow felt least evidence of the information that we received that Ally was, that's the name of the leasing company, getting, I'll say, pushy, for lack of a better phrase. And therefore, he referred the matter to legal counsel. And then you start to see in the attachments where, for whatever reason, the Ally sent a letter to us in May that was then received in August, and the information was forwarded to Peter Smith. Attorney Smith had reached out to Ally at least 2 times, trying to get information to try and resolve this. And the numerous times that the business office reached out to the leasing company, we were told that they would not talk to us because the matter was referred to counsel, so we were kind of, for lack of a better phrase, flying blind. But we continued to make payments on our vans that we had received. And so the issue is then that with this outstanding balance of the misapplied payment, in addition to what they're claiming on the late fees, they being Ally felt it was in their right to repossess the 2019 Honda Odyssey van. And we have made payments to date on that van. I'd say Member Hollins was very close to that. It was about 9,000. Excuse me here now. $8,970.78.
So I
Thanks, Andy.
The other question is, what's the purchase price of the van? Am I right? It was around 30,000.
The amount that we would have to purchase it outright now is the amount that I listed, the 29,000.
Right, but
so it was like a 30. Sorry.
No, I just wondered the price of the van initially, not with interest and everything.
Oh, I don't have that amount initially, the initial price of the van. I just have the amount paid and then the amount the balance would be due, including obviously the interest on that. I have not had access to Mr. Nemberkow's files. So
Well, the
I
other
don't
piece I
have the
think to add
original.
that's important is that the district added thousands of dollars worth of equipment to this van after it
Correct.
was purchased. About $7,000 worth of
That is
equipment to the van after it was purchased that is still in the van that
I
obviously,
see.
yeah.
also correct. Yes.
I see.
Can I ask some questions?
Please go ahead, Member Ekstrom.
So in the materials that were included with the superintendent's distribution today, there are two different vans that are discussed. One is account number XXX, last four being 7378. And there's an identical letter for account number 7361. So that's two separate vans. And I know that since we've sort of been working through this, that Kristen, our assistant business person, I'm certain I have the wrong title, has been able to get through to them and cleared up that, yes, indeed, the payments were applied incorrectly. And having been applied correctly, we are now up to date as much as we could be. We're still waiting on some more information. So my question is, do we need to purchase this van outright since we've been making payments on it, or is it that we can continue to make payments on it? Based on Ally acknowledging that they had made a mistake and went so far as to repossess one of our vans that we had been making payments on due to their mistake.
I guess, and with I'll say the disclaimer that I'm not an attorney.
Sure.
That the fact that they've taken repossession of the van, that the way I read is with their notice of plan to sell the property, that regardless of us,
regardless of their admitting that they screwed up how they were allocating funds.
Yes, and also the fact that their intent to sell. So that since they are intending to sell, that the recourse available to us is to purchase it outright. So I guess that is I'd say when I read their notice of our plan to sell property, take on it, and quite honestly, I can say that I just want to get out of doing business with this leasing company.
Yes.
So.
And
also,
question. Oh,
yes.
Sorry.
I just want to say that, and regarding that, regardless, I'll say whichever avenue the committee chooses to do, even for the remaining vans, we have been working with both Ms. Gilman in the procurement office regarding other leasing companies to potentially have them take over this lease for the remainder of the vehicles that we have under lease due to the issues we've been having. There are better leasing companies out there. So I just would share with you that, the action tonight from the committee, if the recommendation to go forward and purchase this van outright, is the first step of what I would say is a two-step process of getting the van back and then getting a new leasing company to take over this lease. Thank you.
And has anyone called Peter at this point, our attorney, and said, how is it that you got involved? Like, what was the reason that this was referred to you as far as his understanding?
I guess I would say I don't know if anyone specifically asked him, but since the fact that the communications referenced Mr. Nemberkow referring the matter to Peter Smith, I reached out to Mr. Nemberkow, and his explanation to me was that they were being, I'll say, bullies, in the fact that he said that they were calling him at home, they were calling his family regarding seeking payment since his name was on the lease, even though he signed it as a business manager. So he deemed that it rose to the level of needing legal counsel handling. So that is my understanding based on the conversation that I had with him.
With Mr. Nemberkow or with our attorney?
Nemberkow.
Okay.
Could I ask a question?
Please, Mayor Wiedegartner, and then I see Susan Holland's hands up. You can go after Roxanne. Go ahead.
Okay, so I still haven't heard the answer to the question, do we need this van? Because I know that we have, in the interim, purchased additional vans, not from this company, which is probably a very good thing based on what I'm hearing here. So I think we need, before we take a vote, if I'm correct in what the motion was, before we take a vote, I think we need to ascertain the reality of whether we really need this van. And I recognize that that we have already spent some money towards purchasing the van and apparently outfitting the van appropriately. Sometimes you have to know when to cut bait and run.
So Mayor, I can speak to that from my conversations with Ed Voudrin, our transportation coordinator. I asked him that question. That was one of my first questions. And he said, we absolutely need this vehicle. We're using it on a day-to-day basis. The $7,000 of equipment that's in the van would be immediately recouped if we were to get this van back. And, you know, there's really question about whether they provided adequate notice. The letter was dated significantly before it was received in the business office. I apologize.
That's fine. Please.
So
go ahead.
that is the information I can share with you regarding the vehicle.
How
Thank
are
you.
we using it? How are we using it daily if it has been repossessed? And who is being transported in this van and where are they going to?
You would be correct that it's not currently in use on a day-to-day basis because it is not in our possession at the moment, but
Okay.
it would be.
Okay.
If it was up to me, I would cut and run on the vans that have been recently purchased and not this Honda.
Any further questions or discussion?
Yes.
I recognize that I recognize Susan's statement, but I think it's a separate issue from the one we're dealing with.
It is indeed. Yes. We can move on.
I have a question.
Member Johnson-Musad, please.
Just following up with Mayor Rita Gardner's question.
Member Hollins is waiting, please. Just thought I'd throw it out there. She's getting frustrated. I can see her.
Not frustrated. I just thought I was going after the mayor.
Sorry. Speaking.
Yes. Following up on Mayor Rita Gardner's comments, I think the other part of her question, in addition to it, obviously it's not being used now because it's been repossessed, but how was the van being used before it was repossessed?
So I think, and I don't want to interrupt if Superintendent Harper wants to speak to it. My understanding is that before the shutdown, these vans were used on a daily basis for out of district transport. They also are used to transport students from other districts to other things, and they also are used for athletics. And in the current situation, our drivers are still working regularly. They have a number of transportation projects that they are doing for the district currently. I don't have specific details on that, but there is meal delivery happening. There are supplies deliveries happening, and other items that I don't know what the superintendent has, but that is stuff I've heard directly from Ed Voudrin.
Thank you.
They've also been used for students in our district. I know my daughter was picked up by one of them on a regular basis until not.
Yeah. So,
Member Hollins,
please
forget.
go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I don't know that I only read all the emails and everything just before the meeting, but this is my concern. We voted on June 12th, 2019 to purchase 3 vehicles, and the discussion and the record says specifically not to lease, but to purchase. I don't even understand why we didn't purchase them and why we have some kind of arrangement at 7.99% when the city's rate is 1 or 2%. So I just don't understand why we're in this situation to begin with when we voted to purchase vehicles.
We've purchased them and are making monthly payments on them. They aren't being leased.
It's a vernacular thing, if that's the right word to use. We have asked the same question multiple times.
But it's a
That's
loan,
correct.
isn't it? And we're not, was never my understanding voting for this that it was anything other than we're going to pay it out. And we said, so I don't understand why we're paying 8% on a loan. That's all.
So member, if I may, member Hollins, you're absolutely right as far as your questioning and the answer we received when because I was asked to research this with Liz Gilman, and Liz Gilman's response to me was that it is a purchase, but for what their financial disclosure requirements are, it had to be structured as what she called underneath the municipal finance a capital lease, which again, back to the vernacular, that is a purchase for what it is that was required by the city, but it is something that we are paying, unfortunately, what for all intents and purposes is a lease. And then also I will add to that hence the exploration of other leasing companies at a much better rate as recommended. And some, admittedly, I'll say some leasing companies that I've worked with and other clients that could get us at a much better rate than what we're currently doing now.
Thank you, Andy, for always answering the questions.
No problem.
He does do a good job at that.
He does. Other questions, comments, discussion? I guess it's time to move to a vote. Can someone remind me what the motion is, please? Maybe Susan Farber, can you read us the motion again?
Sure, I can do that. To purchase the I'll start over. To purchase the recently repossessed van for the school district as a purchase outright for $29,282.20.
Thank you. And let's move to a vote. Member Johnson Musad, would you do a roll call, please?
Member Karen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom,
Yes.
Member Hollins,
Yes.
Secretary Johnson, yes. Chair Poyetti? If you're
Yes.
saying, okay. Member Wall?
I was thinking.
Mayor Rita Gardner?
I abstain. I wasn't here in 2019. I have read the record, but I really don't know.
I abstain is good. Thank you.
Okay.
Can we know where this is going to be paid from or have a motion about that?
I think that's a smart idea. Member Johnson, the motion passed, correct?
The motion did pass, yes. With
Okay.
6 votes.
I did have one more question
Please.
as well.
Member Karen, and then we'll talk about, well, is it related to where the money's coming from? Your question?
Nope.
Go ahead then.
It's Ekstrom and
Oh, sorry.
Susan,
I cannot tell your voices apart.
I know,
it's so
that's okay.
frustrating. Thank you.
Susan Hollins asked about us knowing where the money came from. This doesn't have to be answered
Where
tonight.
this money will come from.
That does have to be answered tonight, I think.
Go ahead.
It's a smart
the
motion.
29,000, and our initial vote on these vans said it wouldn't bump out money from our budget for students. And whatever we were paying was coming out of this revolving fund for transportation. So I want to know where it's coming from, this 29,000.
It would be that transportation revolving account would be my recommendation.
And could I make that motion?
Please go ahead.
Then I move that the 29,000, the exact amount that we voted tonight, be paid from the transportation revolving fund.
Second.
I think that was Member Ekstrom with the second.
Yes.
Discussion?
Member Rita Gardner?
Please go ahead.
Do we know that we have the adequate amount of money in the revolving account?
That's an important question.
Yes, we do, in addition to the existing contracts that we have that we will be receiving payment for this year. So I am comfortable with it being charged there.
Thank you, Andy, for answering the question.
Further questions or discussion?
I
Let's
still have
move
a
to-
question,
oh,
but I don't
please.
know if, because I don't want to close out quite this van topic quite yet. So again, when I'm looking at these letters, they're for two different vans.
Right, and
One
I've
is
seen that as well.
7378 and
Yep.
one is 7361. Looks like we're going to be purchasing 7378. So what's going on with 7361? We don't have to have the answer now, but I've asked a few times and I haven't gotten one yet.
So let's see if we can try to get some more information on that for the next meeting. I'll put the vans on the meeting agenda for October 14th because I have additional questions that I don't feel are a timely piece for tonight and that are bigger than just this discussion with the vans. But they're related to things we've uncovered as a part of the van debacle. I need to come up, it's like Van Gate and then Van Gate 2. Yeah.
Van theater.
So further discussion related to the motion for the payment. Okay, so let's move to a vote on that, please. Member Johnson Musad.
Can't hear you, Glenn.
Oh boy. Okay. I'm going to put on my checklist. Unmute yourself. Okay. Member Karen.
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom.
Yes.
Member Hollins.
Yes.
Secretary Johnson, I'm a yes. Chair Proietti.
Yes.
Member Wall.
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegardner.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Should we send our questions to you if this is going to come up on an agenda or just wait?
The agenda item will be called vans or van discussion. It will be that, it will be that wide open.
Will be Van Gate.
Like I said, we have uncovered layers of questions related to this, and we need to keep it open-ended because we need to do it in a public session.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Okay, we have basically shot to heck our timeline for the night, but we tried. And I would entertain at this point a motion to put on the table until October 14th the remaining new business items under Section 5 of the agenda.
So moved.
And a second?
Second. Second.
I had Member Wall first for the second. Any discussion of that? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote on that.
No, actually, I was speaking, but I was on mute. Sorry.
Go ahead, please. Member Johnson Musad.
Thank you, Chair Proietti. I guess I thought that the item about the budget stuff that needed to be handled tonight was about the 1/12th. It wasn't?
That is not a pressing agenda item.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion?
I have a question.
Is that Member Karen?
I feel like we covered this in the superintendent's report, but I don't have the agenda in front of me, but I do believe one of the items was discussion of the remote learning plan.
Indeed.
Okay. I just want to, I'm totally fine with tabling the rest of the agenda, but I just want to put it out there that we did talk about it in the superintendent's report and that we always welcome emails and questions and comments, however they come. But I don't want people to think if they missed that part of it that we didn't talk about it at all.
Correct. Thank you for that clarification. That's an important one. Any other further discussion about tabling the new business items that are remaining? Okay, hearing none, let's do a roll call vote on that, please.
Member Karen.
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom.
Yes.
Member Hollins.
Yes.
Secretary Johnson, I'm a yes. Chair Proietti.
Yes.
Member Wall.
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegardner.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, so now we're into section 6. Executive session may be called. I'm going to read it. Mass General Law C30A 21, exemptions number 2, 3, and 7. 2 is to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Exemption 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body and the chair so declares. And Exemption 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. And the chair does declare if I have a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Member Johnson Musad with the motion and a second.
Second.
That was Mayor Wiedegartner. And any discussion of that?
Only would you send a link?
I will.
Resend it, please. Thank you.
I will resend the link for the executive session to the school committee members. I'm in a thought process now about whether or not we will need to return and leave this session open. Do I have any guidance from anyone, the superintendent or otherwise, if we should leave open the public session to come back for a vote?
It doesn't seem required, but maybe I'm one step behind.
Are you thinking of the minutes if they're released? I don't believe there's anything that requires coming back in public session
That was
tonight.
the only thing. Thank you. That was the one thing I was thinking about. So, okay, we will not return to this meeting after our executive session. So we will close this meeting at this point. So we need to vote to open executive session and then we'll vote to adjourn the public session. Is that the right order? I believe it is. Okay. Member Johnson Musad, would you do a roll call vote, please?
On the motion to go into executive session, Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Member Hollins?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson, I'm a yes. Chair Poyetti?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegartner?
Yes.
Okay, the motion to go into executive session carries.
Okay, and then a motion to adjourn the public session.
So moved.
Member Johnson Musad in a second.
Second.
I don't know who that was. Ekstrom. Member Ekstrom. Let's do a roll call vote on that, please.
Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yep.
Member Hollins?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson, I'm a yes. Chair Poyetti?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegartner?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. I'm sending the school committee folks all a link right now to the executive session. We'll see you there. Let's take a 5-minute break and we'll see you there. Thank you to the public for being here tonight.